We are talking about the client's financial statement to how to determine the equity component of the IRS collection potential. If you're on this call right now, if you don't want to talk, or you can please talk. Who here has had to evaluate their client's financials to determine what the IRS is going to do? Have you already done that, or is this something brand new? It kind of gives me a better idea to determine this. Brand new, Michelle. Okay, excellent, excellent. So Michelle, I'm assuming Rhonda's done it. Yeah, I assume you do it, Rhonda. I know you do 2 cases already. So Michelle, you're doing primarily tax prep right now? Excellent. How about yourself, Liz? You at the collection stuff? No. Okay, perfect, perfect. This is a very good topic from this point of view, guys, is that I guess let me ask you a question. How many here, I think all of us here have actually prepared tax returns. Rhonda does resolution taxes, excellent. A lot of us do tax returns, right? And don't you hate it when somebody says, you know, hey, can you do my taxes? And they'll give you some information, then they'll say, well, can you tell me what my refund's gonna be? Or how much am I gonna owe? I mean, it's impossible really to tell somebody anything, right? What do you need? You need the documentation, the information. You need to actually prepare the taxes to determine whether somebody's going to owe, whether they're going to get a refund or owe some money. Well, in the collection world, it's kind of very similar. A lot of times people will call me and say, hey, I owe the IRS, you know, whether it's $20, $50, $100,000, how much can you reduce that amount? Can I pay less? Well, you really don't know what the answer is, right? I hate to estimate. Exactly, Rhonda. You know, when somebody's when you're doing tax prep, you don't want to, people will say, can you estimate what do you think what my refund's going to be or whatever? I mean, you get everything in the world. And the same thing applies to the whole resolution world. You can't guess what somebody's going to pay, or you can't estimate if they're going to qualify to have their taxes reduced, the penalties reduced. You really can't do that. You have to get information. And that's kind of where we're going to start this conversation, is you literally have to collect information from them to determine what is going to be the best route to find out what the solution is going to be for their specific tax problem. I'm going to share my screen, and then you can at least kind of see some of my notes here as we're talking about this. Let's do this. I'm going to move that over here and then share this screen right here. I think this is the screen. Here we go. So can you guys see my screen where it says client financial statement? Just want to make sure. Yes. So when clients contact you that have tax problems, the main thing that they want to do, right? The reason they're calling you is because they want to solve their tax problem. And it's going to be your job as a tax professional to determine how are you going to do that. We can't guess. You know, when people call me and say, you know, hey, do you think I can do an offer in compromise? My answer is always, I don't know. Do you think you can set up an installment agreement? I don't know. You know, we don't know none of this information because we have to determine what is their current liability, what do they owe in taxes, and most importantly is what's their current financial situation. And that's what this class, we're going to kind of, this can literally be a full 2 to 3 day class. I'm kind of going to go over just the basics of how we determine this information. And as I say right here, you know, every resolution case, you need to figure out what the available options are. So, and we're going to figure that out by figuring out do a financial analysis on them. And as I mentioned earlier, I already brought this up, you know, we can't determine what somebody's refund is going to be, how much money they owe until you look at the actual information. So when we're doing a financial analysis, what we're actually doing, we're going to calculate what's called an RCP, if you want to write that down, the RCP. And here's what the RCP is. The RCP is what the IRS calls the reasonable collection potential from the client. I'm pulling up your, I want to make sure I can see And please ask questions if you have them as I'm discussing that. And basically what the reasonable collection potential is kind of the IRS's way of determining how much can they collect from this person, at least within the next 1 to 2 years. They want to kind of get a better sense of what's going on in their finances to come up with some of these numbers. And when we figure out what the reasonable collection potential is, it's going to determine a few things. Can the client do an offer in compromise, which is one. Actually, I'm going to actually put this. One, do they qualify for an offer in compromise? Do they qualify for an installment agreement? Could they qualify for a partial pay installment agreement? Typing this out here. Do they qualify for a CNC? I think we did this class just recently, which is currently not collectible. In other words, the client does not have enough income or assets to make any type of payment to the IRS. Currently not income, currently not collectible. So when we do this financial analysis, we're going to be able to tell the client which route is the route that they're going to have to go. I get so many people, and I don't know, Rhonda, you do resolution. How many times do people think that, have you gotten that call? Hey, I owe $50,000. I can get $3,000. You think the IRS will take it? They literally just come up with these numbers out of the blue. Whether somebody, she said, yeah, whether somebody told them specifically, oh, the IRS will settle. And I think part of it is also the education. We shouldn't even call it education. The information that they're getting from the radio, from television, they make it sound like everybody's going to qualify to settle for pennies on the dollar. And that is not there you go. And that is not the case. In fact, if I remember right, I think the last time I looked at the IRS statistics, like only 30% of all offer and compromises are ever accepted. And I think the reason it's that low is just because there's so many that are being submitted that never would qualify in the first place. And a lot of people just don't realize is that it takes the IRS almost right now running a year to year and a half for somebody to actually look at the documents to really kind of determine what's the next step. So you have all these people kind of filing these offers and compromise that never would qualify. So they're all getting denied, and they all get put in part of the statistics of the IRS only accepts, around 30% of offer and compromise. So our job today is to show you what the IRS is looking at, so you can kind of give them a better direction of what is the best options for them to look at. Because I've had cases where somebody has come to me and said, well, if you can't do an offer, then I'm not going to hire you. Well, I'd much rather tell them right up front. And in fact, in most of the times when I get those calls, and in most cases, and you're going to see how I do this, is I can tell somebody within about a 10 to 15 minute conversation with them if an offer and compromise is even is even in consideration. So, Rhonda brought up and that's a good, I'm glad you brought that up, Rhonda, because I didn't even have it on here. The one thing about when you're doing this, the RCP, especially when it comes to an offer and compromise, and this is really important to know. And with an offer and compromise, they're looking at the financial condition of the client when you submit the offer. They're looking at the financial condition of the client when the offer gets to the offer examiner, which could be 12 months, 18 months down the road. They're going to want updated financials. And they're also looking at the client's information at the time of closing, when the offer is going to actually get shut down, when they're going to wrap it up. They're looking at them basically 3 different times. So, and the client situation can change dramatically. They could be unemployed, not making any income now, and then 12 months down the road, they're employed, or vice versa. They may have came to you making too much money, and then a year down the road, they're not making any money. So things change drastically when it comes down to the dealing with clients and looking at the reasonable collection potential of the client. So with that, I'm going down here, a few more notes. So the IRS is going to utilize, they use the RCP it's a specific formula the IRS uses to determine, again, what I just mentioned earlier. What's the resolution that the IRS is going to consider? When it comes to looking at the reasonable collection potential, the IRS is looking at net equity and assets, and they're also looking at future income. So income over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I've had a situation where IRS collections came to me and said, "Hey, this is the starting salary for most people in this industry is this amount. Does the client expect an increase of income over the next 24 months?" So they are looking at future income as well. And that can also help in your benefit. If you have a client that's, nearing retirement age, the last year, he's 65, 66, 67, still working. Is he going to stop working? Is he going to go into retirement, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the road where their income is going to drop?